So we had been talking about the Switch Mini for a while, right? The Switch Mini is real. It's called the Switch Lite, and it's actually going to be out in September. Same day as Link's Awakening, by the way, which, I mean, I wouldn't hate a Zelda version Nintendo. You're doing a Pokemon one, just something to think about there. But yes, it is real. It's $200, which is the price point that I was kind of figuring it would be, kind of pinpointing it there. And it has some interesting features, or lack of features, I should say, that seem to be confusing some, annoying some. But I think this is just one new addition to the Switch family. I think there are there's at least one other one coming, possibly two, of course. And at this point, trust me, based on what they've done with the Switch Lite, anything's kind of possible now, because yes, ladies and gentlemen, they have introduced a Switch that does not switch. If you remember a while ago, we had brought up the notion of the new system, the Mini, particularly at the times we were calling it, obviously, not being able to dock, and that would save them money, or kind of just have them make a handheld only version. And it didn't go over well. People weren't sure. It didn't make a lot of sense to people. And then Eurogamer came out, kind of put the same notion out there, still wasn't really widely accepted. And now here we go. Nintendo announces a Switch that will not switch, does not connect to the TV. Now, before we get into this, we also had a leak that appears to have been just about correct. It was so close. If you remember that turquoise shell that I had talked about at one point, looks like that was pretty close, I would say. The only difference I could see here is that the game card and what appeared to be, at the time, the micro SD slot was actually moved over, and it's on the other side now. But this, we would assume at one point, was for like prototyping, or they were trying to get the mold right or something. This also had to be mirrored, I believe, to get to this point. So who knows, maybe mirroring it or something, it's hard to say, messed this up. But it does look like this leak was on to something, right? I'll say that. It was very close. So we were at one point looking at the back of it straight up, which is kind of funny. It's funny to go back and see the leaks that ended up being correct, right? So the Switch Mini, or Switch Lite, we're just going with that, Switch Lite. I have some questions for it, because I think some of Nintendo's marketing is already a bit off, and it's a little confusing to some people. So we're going to try to clear some of that up here, I guess, as best we can, because again, it's a little odd. Now, right away, you can see the form factor here being significantly different than the Switch that we know now. Of course, the Switch we know now has detachable Joy-Con controllers, and it doesn't have this D-pad. I want to see what this D-pad is like. If it's similar to what we have in the Pro Controller, it's better, I would say, to use than these buttons, but it's still not amazing. I hope that they spent time with the D-pad and made it really, really good, because that's something they can get away with now on the Lite, is a D-pad, considering you don't have to remove Joy-Cons and move them over. They also did this interesting thing with the bezel to an attempt to visually shrink it. As you can see, I don't know if I think this black outline might just be the edge of the screen in general in their rendering, but they tried to kind of hide the bezel by making it the same color as each system. There's three different ones. There's a turquoise, a gray, and this yellow that you're seeing here. And they tried to make it seemingly the same color to make the bezel appear smaller, which I think actually works, although I do need to see it in person just to see how well it works. But I think that's at least a clever idea. The buttons, the joysticks, everything, D-pad, all of that is all white to kind of contrast against the background. And the buttons seem to have, it almost looks like the actual lettering on there are like indented almost. So it might give a better texture and feel when you're playing, so you can find the buttons easier or whatnot. But it might be easier to grip that way. They removed a lot of stuff. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that now. They went over this in a trailer. They removed an obscene amount of stuff from the system to get it to a $199.9 price point, which, again, is the price point that I figured that they needed to get to for it to even make any sense. Like, if it was $250, we would all just be saying why right now. But it's $100 less, and they appear to be targeting towards parents who want to buy a Switch for their kids, or a person who wants to have a second Switch, or honestly, somebody who just wants a D-pad at this point, and not dealing with third-party accessories like the Hori, Joy-Con or anything. This appears to be marketed towards the kids, the Pokemon fans, as there is a Pokemon Switch that we'll take a look at, by the way, and the parents who need to buy multiples at Christmas time. So handheld mode only. It will not connect to a TV. It also does not have a kickstand, so tabletop mode is out the door essentially, unless you, I guess, make your own kickstand, or at that point get one of those stands that would work for it, as it still has kind of the notch in the back where it would sit, and the vents seem to be in a very similar location, so I assume that would also work. So I guess you can kind of get your own stand to create a way for it to sit up, because it will still apparently connect Joy-Con controllers. That seems to be a very odd spot though, and seems to be a very confusing sticking point for some people. We'll go over. It only supports handheld mode, but in the trailer, they talked about 1-2 switch. But then in the trailer, they also talked about looking at the back of the box to see if the game is compatible with your system. They said you need additional Joy-Con controllers to play 1-2 switch. However, 1-2 switch says no handheld mode. So I'm not sure how that's all actually working, because on one end they say, oh, you have to look. If it says no handheld mode, then it won't work with this thing. But if you want to play 1-2 switch, you need separate Joy-Con controllers. So you can already see they're kind of all over the place already, and it's a little weird for that. But that's right. This is a Switch that will not switch. They're still keeping that name because it more or less indicates the family, not necessarily the system itself. It's a full family of devices. Now we get down to the size. It is quite a bit smaller actually than the Switch currently. As you can see, it's what's that, 0.4 inches shorter, a little bit, actually quite a bit shorter on the width side as well. So length width is all smaller. It looks quite a bit smaller actually when you put it next to each other, and it is lighter. So we go from 0.88 pounds to 0.61 pounds, so a decrease, what's that, like 20% in weight. It is quite a bit lighter, it seems. The screen also shrinks because of that to 5.5 inches. However, it still maintains its 720p resolution, which tells me it might actually end up looking sharper, which could be good for anyone who maybe thinks that the current Switch looks a little blurry at times when you're playing handheld mode. The screen shrinking might actually help when it comes to that. So that's going to be interesting to see how that looks in person. Of course, it's also going to come down to the quality of the screen that they're choosing, because remember, this is also dropping the price. So were they looking to save money on that screen is also a possibility. Now, the other interesting thing here is the battery life. The battery life appears to have improved 20 to 30% according to their own findings when it comes to things like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild going from 3 hours to 4 hours. But while that seems like a marginal increase, here's the interesting thing about this situation. I assume the battery itself has also been reduced. So it's actually smaller, we would assume, in the Switch Lite, because the Switch Lite has become smaller. Now, because they don't have things like HD Rumble, which also is not in here, no IR camera, maybe they saved room and it's still the same size battery, but I assume there is a revised X1 of some kind, whether they shrunk it or did something for better power management, that they are just getting better battery life that way, which is good. However, I was hoping for a little bit of a better increase. Remember, they're saying 3 to 7 hours as opposed to 2.5 to 6.5 hours on the current Switch. So it's not a significant jump, but it's also going to come down to the size of that battery inside. You might have a faster charging switch and everything, which would be cool, but we're going to have to open this thing up, and we're going to do that. So I will be opening this thing up, absolutely, and we're going to get a good look at it from there, which will be fun, to see how things have moved around, because it's going to be lighter, seemingly because they removed a lot of stuff, and I want to see what that battery looks like, and of course, what that new chip looks like that should be in there. So exciting stuff on that end. I also assume that chip is going to be in that Shield TV that we talked about before. Here's a nice little look at a real comparison across the board, where you have TV mode, tabletop mode, handheld, basically everything on this side, and then you can just see how much they had to remove. Now, there will still be NFC. It still is in there for like amiibos and everything. Still has gyro controls, which is good, and it will still sync up controllers. All of this according to a couple of outlets that got hands-on time with it, like The Verge, for example, I believe CNET, and they at least were able to confirm that things will sync to it. However, again, you're going to need your own kickstand or some kind of setup to play that comfortably, I assume, as I don't know how well that will work without a way to hold it, or I guess if a friend can just sit there and hold it for you while you're playing, I guess that'll work. Also, it is weird omitting the kickstand, as this would still, I assume, work mostly in tabletop mode, but that's what they wanted to do, I guess. So there you go. Manufacturers will at least be excited, as third-party accessory manufacturers, as they can now come up with a new way to add a kickstand. Also, a lot of us would like a D-pad on our Joy-Con, Nintendo. However, you seem to have confirmed to CNET that there are no plans or nothing to announce in terms of further variants of Joy-Con after CNET asked you about this little D-pad right here, this little control pad plus control pad. I would like that on a Joy-Con, just a variant, but we'll see if that ever happens. However, I am hopeful still, but it is weird. We haven't seen a Joy-Con in a while, right? It's been a while. And I like some of the colors that they had there. The turquoise looked cool. We've had gray and yellow, but they are at least playing around with different shell colors and everything. So maybe we will see a new Joy-Con variant with a D-pad, but at least for now, it looks like if you want a first-party D-pad from Nintendo on your system in handheld mode, you would be getting this system, and maybe that's part of their strategy. And of course, who could forget the special edition Switch Lites? Because I knew they would be doing this. I think we all figured this, right? There would be some sort of Switch Lite for Pokemon, and we have one here. Really shows that they are targeting the Pokemon audience with this. However, they have also said that this is not going to knock off the 3DS or kill the 3DS, but I mean, it's basically a dedicated handheld from Nintendo in the Switch lineup. Even though it doesn't switch, yes, I know. But Pokemon is getting its special edition Switch, and you know what? It looks pretty cool. It's got the blue on one side and kind of the red magenta on the right for the different buttons. And I like the fact that they are adding this to the Switch itself straight up, etching to it, because, of course, we've seen some that just they play with the dock and everything. Well, if there's ever a special edition mini, you know, whatever they're doing is etched to the system itself, and I like that. I like that they're playing around with the button colors. This could open up a wealth of special editions going forward, because they could be doing this. I think every year we'll probably get a Pokemon variant. Go figure, right? But this is coming out the same day as Zelda Link's Awakening, and I would have loved to have seen a Link's Awakening special edition for the Lite. There's still time, but we are getting pretty close to its September 20th release date, so we'll see. Also, I don't know if they would want to release a special edition variant alongside of the 3 that they're trying to sell. That seems like that would kind of muddy the market and might hold off sales on the ones that they definitely want to do. This, of course, isn't even coming out until it says there, the 11/8 while supplies last. A special edition is just time for the holidays and release of Pokemon Sword and Shield on 11/15. So you'll be able to get this actually a week ahead of Pokemon Sword and Shield. So not everyone's going to be happy with the Switch Lite, and it is definitely not marketed towards everyone. They have a Switch, right? The regular Switch that a lot of people have now, and then they have the Switch Lite. And I think there will be another Switch in due time. It could even still be this year that they announced it. I mean, they just dropped the trailer, kind of like I figured they would. And here we are now with 2 different variants of the Switch, or even just 2 systems in the Switch family. And here's the thing. Nothing's really off the table at this point, because we now have a device in the Switch family that doesn't technically switch and live up to its overall brand name, and that's kind of thrown a lot of people off. Seriously, think about that. Could they have a TV mode only Switch? I mean, why not? They have a handheld only Switch, right? It's technically not a hybrid device anymore. It's just a handheld device. Yeah, they could do that. I mean, they have their hybrid here on the left. They have their handheld system on the right. Could they have their own console TV mode only Switch? I think it's entirely possible. And I think for people to be ruling that out now after seeing what they've done here would be short-sighted. So you never know. You know, I'm not confirming or saying, yeah, there's definitely a TV mode only Switch coming, but why not? Why not? I think Nintendo's looking at this like, we have our do everything system here with the Switch, right? The base Switch. We have our handheld mode here with the Lite, and maybe they want their consoleized system with a TV mode Pro or the Nintendo Switch Stay at Home. I don't know. I mean, they broke the Lite name back out. I think if they do replace the current Switch that we have now with another hybrid system, they would just go back to the well and call it the new Nintendo Switch. But I'm actually okay with the Lite. I think it's going to sell like crazy in Japan this holiday season. I think it'll sell well in the US as well and other parts of the world. This is the system that parents go to the store and buy multiples of for families of, 4 or 5, where they have 2 or 3 kids there. and they don't want to spend $600, they can spend $400 and it won't take up their TV. Just make sure you're reading the back of the box to make sure it is compatible with your system. Otherwise, patches will probably have to roll out. I believe Mario, for example, Odyssey, uses Rumble to find certain moons. Well, you're going to have to figure out a way around that, Nintendo, now that this one does not support HD Rumble. Let me know what you guys think about the Switch Lite, because it is a very fascinating route for Nintendo to take at this point, since they have eliminated TV mode from a Switch device. Let me know, guys, down below. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, dislike it if not, and I'll see you guys next time.